Lane Kiffin. To be honest, I haven't really paid much attention to him throughout his career. I don't really know why. It's not like he's ever been afraid of the headlines. What I saw was some dude who everyone continued to tout as the next big head coach, only to end up getting torched by the same media that elevated him to begin with. I pretty much thought that he was all hot air and just a loudmouth. But over the last couple of years, I have had no choice but to actually start to follow him and his various escapades. From the success he's had at Ole Miss, to successfully running away from an angry mob at a Mississippi airport. I figured I could just open up a few articles, read about Lane Kiffin, and verbally destroy his ass like I've done with other coaches and teams in the past. I guessed it would be an easy little diatribe, and then I could move on to roasting Oklahoma, or UCLA, or some other program that deserves my wrath. And then I realized just how big of a fucking mess this guy has made throughout his career. Without fail, this dude has stirred up so much bullshit and drama, it makes the reaction to the final season of Stranger Things look tame. Lane Kiffin has pulled the pin on more chaos grenades than Mike Leach, Bobby Petrino, and Urban Meyer combined, and in a shorter period of time as well. The son of a bitch just turned 50 in May. Kiffin has had several instances of throwing Molotov cocktails at the athletic department, shitting in the athletic director's hat, shoving it in the mascot's face, and giving the middle finger salute on his way out the door, only to do it all again at another program. Call me a spoiled Ohio State fan all you want, but before this year, I couldn't have cared less about the fucker. But now, he's fucked up and given me many reasons to care.
When you kept getting messages, the head coach wants to talk to you, and you saying, I'm not ready to talk to him.
I wasn't.
Well, what f***ing world do you live in?
I don't see why you gotta be disrespectful, honestly.
Get out of here. Go, you're off the team. You're done. See ya.
Because I'm...
See ya. Go. And guess what? We can kick you off the team to go read your f***ing rights about mental health. We can kick you off the team for not showing up. When the head coach has to meet with you and you don't show up for weeks, okay, we can remove you from the team. It's called being the it's called hiding behind and not showing up to work.
It is time to fully expose the sins of this snake for all to see once and for all. In order to fully grasp what all Lane has done, it's best we go all the way back to the beginning. Hope he packs some anti-venom, because the last thing you want to do is get bit by this bastard. Also, before we go any further, I'm going to do something I've never done before and give out a disclaimer. For legal reasons. Yeah, no, this actually might piss certain people off, so I just want to make completely clear that everything you are about to see and hear is a statement of my own thoughts based on the research I've done over the last several months. I am just talking to a bunch of people on the internet who just so happen to want to listen to what I have to say. So if certain people have a problem with what is contained in this essay, sorry not sorry. I'm just giving out my opinion. Okay, I think that takes care of that. Now let's begin the fuck Lane Kiffin party.
Party.
To be fair to Lane, it's not like we give him shit because he came from nothing. He is the son of a famous coach after all. No, you won't hear ESPN talk about him much these days in between all the bullshit coming out of the mouths of Stephen A. Smith and Paul Feinbaum. But the late, great Monty Kiffin is one of the most underappreciated and influential coaches of his era. Over a 5-decade career in both college and the NFL, his most notable accomplishment was helping develop the Tampa 2 defense. Yeah, that play you spam on Madden and College Football 26 over and over again because you have no idea what the fuck you're doing? Yeah, that one. It revolutionized the way defense is played and eventually built the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the late 90s and early 2000s, culminating in a Super Bowl championship at Super Bowl 37. The younger Kiffin was always going to have some big shoes to fill thanks to his dear old papa being a legend, especially since he couldn't quite cut it as a player. Little Lane had dreams, damn it. He wanted to be the quarterback for the Fresno State Bulldogs. A humble dream, you could say, and one he surely achieved, except the best he ever did was ride the bench as a backup for 3 years. When his senior season rolled around, he had a chance to start, but got upstaged by some guy named David Carr. As the story goes, he protested the decision to start Carr by not wearing the knee brace that offensive coordinator Jeff Tedford made every quarterback wear in practice. He was then promptly kicked off the field by Coach Tedford, and Lane came back out 30 minutes later in a polo shirt, now suddenly an assistant wide receivers coach, or so the story goes. He would spend the next few years learning at Fresno State before leaving in 1999 for Colorado State to become a graduate assistant there, working mainly with the offensive line. It turned out to be a win for Kiffin, as the Rams went on to have a fine enough season, being ranked in the top 25 at one point and even played in the Liberty Bowl. Just don't watch the game itself or ask who they lost to. It's better left unsaid.
You stupid.
After the work with Colorado State, Lane departed for Jacksonville to become the defensive quality control coach of the Jaguars. What does the position of defensive quality control coach entail exactly? Great question. I had absolutely no fucking idea. So I looked it up, and apparently it was the same thing as being an errand boy. Sure, you're on the assistant coach's staff and are listed as an NFL assistant coach, but in reality, you're just the assistant coach to the assistant coaches, the bottom of the barrel. Lane spent his year there writing playbooks, scouting reports, and doing all the other bullshit that actual assistants didn't want to do, which isn't glamorous, but it gave Lane vital experience working with an NFL team, and the Jags in 2000 actually weren't that bad. However, he was not long for the NFL, as he got an unexpected call from an old family friend by the name of Pete Carroll. Coach Carroll had just been fired by the New England Patriots after 3 years. I mean, it wasn't like he did a horrible job, but he couldn't get rid of the stench of being the replacement for Bill Parcells, who was controversially fired in 1995. Add to that the internal strife from Robert Kraft becoming the new owner, and the Patriots crashing out of the playoff race late in the 99 season, and suddenly he was out of a job. So when the Trojans of Southern California decided to give Carroll a shot, a ton of people in Los Angeles were not happy about it, as they feared the Trojans would continue to tread water like they had for most of the 90s. Coach Carroll's career was kind of on life support at this point. Not only did he fail as head coach of the Patriots, but also as head coach of the New York Jets, in which he was fired after only one season in 1994. Remember the Dan Marino clock play?
Marino's trying to get everybody on the line of scrimmage. Now he still has one timeout. They'll save that for the field goal if they have to. We are seeing another spectacular effort by Marino, who fires. Touchdown! You know what the Jets were thinking? He's going to take the ball and throw it into the ground. They stopped. They all stopped.
Yeah, his Jets were 6-5 going into that game. They crashed out and finished 6-10 after it. Hiring Lane, who was still pretty low on the totem pole himself and still had a lot to prove, was a risk. But Pete offered him the job as tight end coach anyway. Not just because he saw something in Lane, but also because they weren't strangers. Pete Carroll and Monty Kiffin had worked together on multiple different coaching staffs from the late 70s to the 90s in both college and the NFL. Hell, Pete was the defensive coordinator for Monty Kiffin when he was briefly the head coach of NC State in the early 80s. He knew Lane was green as the Coliseum grass, but he was also running out of people that could join his staff after his repeated failures. Little did he know the monster that he was about to unleash on the college football world. It turned out to be one of the best hires he ever made as a coach, as Lane worked his way up the ladder, going from tight end coach to wide receiver, and then getting passing coordinator duties in 2004. The Trojans would grow as well, going from the Las Vegas Bowl in 2001 in Pete Carroll's first season, to then slicing apart the Pac-10 like it was a sword in the turf. For Carroll and Kiffin, the height of their USC run would occur from 2003 to 2005. Not only did they start winning multiple Pac-10 titles in a row, but also turned USC into the conquerors of all of college football, winning 2 straight national championships behind 2 Heisman Trophy winners in Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. Lane Kiffin had essentially become the architect of the USC offensive attack, not only by training and coaching the skill positions, and later the quarterbacks as well, but also by leading the charge in recruiting the very best players in the nation to come to Southern California, earning USC the best recruiting classes year after year. For Lane, it paid off in 2005 with a promotion to the role of offensive coordinator, albeit without some feathers being ruffled in the process. See, the thing is that while Lane certainly helped lay a great foundation for USC to thrive and prosper with his work in recruiting and his mentorship as an assistant coach, the offense that won both of those titles in 2003 and 2004 was still generaled by the actual offensive coordinator at the time, Norm Chow. Now, Norm was a damn good coach in his own right, and it showed, but he began to feel that his position under Pete Carroll was being diminished by Lane Kiffin, who was handed more and more of the play calling duties during the 2004 campaign. After trying and failing to become head coach of the Wall of Fucking Trees, he was offered $1 million by Jeff Fisher and the Tennessee Titans and fucked off to the NFL as a coordinator. But I mean, it's not like this would be too much for Lane. He seemed to definitely be ready for the role as offensive coordinator after spending a year helping call the plays. However, Carroll wasn't quite convinced yet and split the OC role between Lane Kiffin and assistant head coach Steve Sarkisian. So not really the only cook in the kitchen running the offense, but close enough. I'm sure it'll work out just fine.
4th and 5, the national championship on the line right here. He's going for the corner. He's got it. Vince Young scores.
Ugh, what a way to end your first year as official coordinator. Nearly winning it all and securing the three-peat, only for Vince Young to run for the corner and secure Texas's first national title in decades. The following season, it was pretty clear that the party at the top of the mountain was over.
This to tie the game. They ran it the last time. They just gave the ball to Washington and ran it in. Same set as the last time. Smith right, Jarrett left. They need the two-point conversion. They go this time. It's knocked down. It's knocked down, and the Beavers are going to win it.
Seriously? You lost to the goddamn Beavers in September? Yeah, I don't think you are actually ready for this, Lane. Sure, you did win the Rose Bowl against Michigan. Thank you, by the way. But you're only 30 years old as well. You have plenty of time to grow still. Hang the fuck on. Wait a minute. He was only 30 at this point? Holy fuck, I'm 30. What the hell am I doing with my... Look, it was no secret that Lane was probably one of the most sought-after head coaching candidates heading into the 2006 season. That was obvious at this point. I mean, who the fuck wouldn't be interested? The question is, who would actually take the chance? The answer, to the shock of absolutely no one at the time, was Al Davis of the Oakland Raiders. Mr. Davis was on yet another rebuilding cycle for the Raiders when it comes to hiring a head coach. You remember John Madden? Of course you do. Who the fuck doesn't? The young, charismatic head coach that came in and won a few rings for the black and silver before we got a bad 1-2 combo of ulcers and burnout, which saw him leave coaching to eventually become one of, if not the greatest football broadcasters to ever live. Al Davis was like, that young Madden hire worked out great. Let's just do this on repeat and we will surely win more rings. If you look at the career of Mike Shanahan, it worked out pretty well. Well, for Mike, not for Oakland. But hey, what about John Gruden? He worked out so well that Tampa Bay would beat Oakland in Super Bowl 37 after Oakland traded John Gruden to Tampa Bay. Funny how that works out, huh? To the surprise of no one after learning this information, Oakland was fucking terrible at this point in time. So how do you fix it? Maybe have Al Davis stop meddling in day-to-day operations? Fuck that. Not only would he continue to meddle with the team, he would look for an even younger head coach. Al Davis would hire Lane Kiffin, which at 31 years young made him the youngest NFL head coach of the modern era. To be fair, Oakland had nothing to lose after 4 straight losing seasons. The Raiders held the #1 pick in the NFL draft in 2007. which meant that Lane Kiffin can start off the rebuild on the right foot by picking an anchor he could build a Super Bowl contender around. The player he wanted? Calvin Johnson. And honestly, I don't blame him. Calvin was a great player and was about as sure as a sure thing could be for a draft pick. Kiffin was even talking him up as the best wide receiver he's ever seen. Just one problem. Al Davis was a control freak. Nothing happened in the Raiders organization without his final seal of approval, especially draft picks. Unfortunately for Lane, old Davis already had his decrepit eyes set on one guy. LSU quarterback, Jamarcus Russell. Look, if you know anything about football, you know the name Jamarcus Russell. It's easy to forget that this guy was a fucking hoss at LSU. On the field, he was outstanding. Off the field, however, there were warning signs of what was to come. In team meetings, rumors were spread that he would always fall asleep and never paid any attention, something that showed in his pre-draft interview with the Detroit Lions, who were interested in him at one point, but wisely passed on him. Not to mention, the dude was a bit of a drug addict, as he picked up an addiction to codeine while at LSU. Lane, being pretty damn good at recruiting with USC, knew Russell would be a bust and went to Davis to beg and plead with him to let the team draft Johnson and pick up a veteran quarterback in free agency. But what Al Davis wanted, Al Davis got. From a wall of seats and suites in Oakland Coliseum so ugly that the fans named it Mount Davis, to relocating the team not once but twice during his life. It was always his way or the highway. Despite the pleas from Lane, the Raiders drafted Jamarcus Russell in the first round of the 2007 NFL Draft. They then paid his ass $68 million with $31 million guaranteed after he held out of minicamp and would watch with glazed over eyeballs as he promptly shat the fucking bed harder than Andre the Giant on laxatives. It wasn't even a hey, we're bad but rebuilding kind of suck. It was the Jesus Christ, we fucked up so bad there's now a salary cap on rookie contracts kind of suck. Don't worry, I'm sure that Calvin Johnson guy didn't pan out either.
Holy look at all this damage.
Yeah, going 4-12 in your debut coaching season is bad. Even Al Davis himself couldn't watch this crap on the field. And he was paying these players millions and millions of dollars to shit all over it. This is where rumors of conflict began to fly out from the Raiders front office, and we learned that everything has been fucked from the start. After the draft, Lane and Davis constantly were at odds with each other in the lead up to and during the regular season with players and coach personnel. Once the season ended, the drama only continued as Lane wanted to fire defensive coordinator Rob Ryan for being bad at his job. Davis rejected him outright, and later rumors swirled around that he asked for Kiffin to sign a letter of resignation so that he wouldn't have to pay the remainder of his contract. True or not, Kiffin remained in Oakland despite the nonsense. When the 2008 season began and the Raiders were blown out in the season opener, Kiffin would blame coordinator Rob Ryan and by extension Al Davis in an attempt to distance himself from the bad performance. Obviously, this did not sit well with the fiery Al fucking Davis. The rumors continued to gain speed, with someone saying that Davis was ready to fire Kiffin at any moment. Coach Kiffin, for his part, never went to Al Davis to try and squash the beef or settle problems once it was getting out of hand. He clearly had had enough and was tired of the nonsense. He focused on the games, and the Raiders somehow began to show some improvement, getting a single win and 2 close losses that saw them leading the games late before blowing it, and showing the Raiders somehow still had a little bit of life. It didn't matter though. Davis had seen enough and fired Kiffin. After that, he hauled his geriatric ass into the press conference, grabbed a projector, and for more than an hour, he proceeded to use it to destroy Lane Kiffin's reputation, calling him a liar, saying he spread propaganda against the Raiders, claiming that once he fired Lane that he must have immediately leaked the story to Chris Mortensen, who not only broke the news first on Lane's firing, but also brought up other shit that Davis would deny. He would say that any rumors regarding poor communication with Lane were not true, that Lane's attacks on him and his assistant coaches were unprofessional. He would also show a letter that he wrote to Lane prior to firing him, calling him unprofessional and saying that his words were hurting the organization. He would go on to also mention that he would overlook Lane's mistakes on certain player decisions due to his inexperience and that Lane was full of excuses and not a single bit of truth. He also mentioned that Lane was involved in nearly every single free agent signing. He never got over the Jamarcus Russell pick. The losses were thanks to Lane forcing his own defense on Coach Rob, while he was also barking at the offense and calling the damn plays. Also, that all he did was complain about what the team did not have, and most damning of them all, Lane Kiffin did not think he could win with this team.
Foreshadowing is a literary device in which...
And that was just the tip of the iceberg. Davis went on and on and on about more and more things that happened, but I'll leave it there. Go look it up for yourself if you have an hour to kill. I think the fact that Kiffin barely tried to fight it with the NFL and the NFL swiftly smacked him back down is enough to say who was telling the truth here. Lane Kiffin is now unemployed and his reputation has been damaged severely. Who would be dumb enough to bring him on now?
I volunteer as tribute.
Okay then, that's pretty random. I mean, previous coach Phil Fulmer was a Tennessee lifer, spending over 30 years with the program, including being a player for them in the late 60s. He did win 2 SEC titles and a national title, but that was back in 1997 and 98, over a decade ago by this point. The fans, of course, appreciated the memories and his loyalty to the program, but after going 5-7 in 2008, they sent the old bastard packing into the Smokies. It's never easy to follow a legend, and honestly, Tennessee knew they were taking a major risk here after Lane's debacle in Oakland. At this point, though, they were desperate to get back into contention in the SEC, which is increasingly getting tougher and tougher year to year. Hell, 2 rivals in Alabama and Florida have not only whipped their asses on a regular basis, but Florida had won national title in the process, and Alabama was on the brink of starting their dynasty. But while Lane Kiffin had no prior SEC experience at all, he did have his old resume to still prop him up. It didn't matter how deep Al Davis buried Lane in that press conference. Building 2 Heismans in 2 years and winning 2 national titles in 3 appearances as an assistant of USC was still carrying his ass. The thought was that since Lane clearly didn't work out in the NFL, he would be much more well-suited in college where he originally found success. Now in the driver's seat of a well-renowned SEC program, Lane needed to start this shit off with a bang.
Racing some of the great traditions at University of Tennessee. For instance, the Vol Walk, running through the tee, singing Rocky Top all night long after we beat Florida next year. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, go after those damn Gators. Volunteer Nation loved that shit. While you're at it, how about you steal Ed Ogeron from LSU, as well as Nick Saban's right-hand man, Lance Thompson, and some other assistant coaches around the SEC. Why not try to take some assistants from Oakland as well? Who cares? It's just the fucking Raiders. Not like you haven't already burnt down the bridge.
This is a recruiting violation. I'm going to turn Florida in right here in front of you. But as Newkeese was here on campus, his phone keeps ringing. And so one of our coaches is sitting in the meeting with him. He says, "Who's that?" And he looks at the phone and says, "Urban Meyer." Okay? Just so you know, when a recruit's on another campus, you can't call a recruit on another campus. But I love the fact that Urban had to cheat and still didn't get him. It's a great job by Eddie Graham.
Lane, you know that's a bit much, right? Yeah, they accidentally called a recruit while said recruit was on a visit to Tennessee, so fucking what? Did you even read the rule book when you got hired, dude? Good God. You know you're in the wrong when the NCAA has to call out your bullshit personally. Coach Big Mouth got his ass in hot water with not only the media, but also the rest of the SEC coaches. The shit talking didn't end there either. He was also talking shit to recruits. A whole lot of shit. So much shit it could fill a sewage plant. Oh, and it turns out that it was Coach Kiffin himself who was actually committing recruiting violations, not Florida. Shocker, I know. Who the fuck could have guessed that, right? Quickly, all the drama had pissed enough people off that SEC Commissioner Michael Slive stepped in to knock it the fuck off. After Lane and the rest of the head coaches were summoned to a round table headed by Commissioner Slive himself, Kiffin would proceed to get a nice southern gentleman's ass chewing from everyone. His response was shrugging his shoulders and going to the media saying he was just doing what he thought he needed to do in order to make a statement and get Tennessee back into the spotlight, which, sure, that worked, but at the expense of looking like a complete jackass to everyone, including your own fans. Kiffin also failed to grasp one other aspect of this dumbass circus he threw during the long offseason. If a football team's players hear about another coach talking shit about their team, or specifically their coach, You better believe they will not forget that shit. The Vols proceeded to get their asses handed to them on a silver platter by almost all of the top teams in the SEC except for 2. He barely lost to Alabama and actually knocked off Steve Spurrier's Gamecocks. Obviously, they weren't in the running for the SEC crown that year, but the rebuild was moving along well enough, albeit louder and dumber than most other rebuilds. Tennessee actually felt optimism going into 2010 as Volunteer fans were curious to see what the next step of the program will be. Now, let's pause for a moment, can we? To this point, I'm sure you're probably thinking, Red? This is nice and all, but this almost sounds like a lot of nothing. I mean, the Oakland story was nuts, and that also might have been more of an Al Davis trying to mix oil and water thing or some shit. And the bullshit he did in the run-up to his first year at Tennessee is embarrassing, but it wasn't really earth-shattering, so he's got a big mouth, who cares? Mike Leach and others like him were rattling more cages than Lane ever did at this point. Honestly, I agree. And writing that part of the video was kind of a challenge because I began to wonder if I had just wasted a couple months of research over this dipshit when I could have been writing story times about Miami or Oklahoma, Michigan, the Dayton Flyers, or whoever the fuck. However, I'm happy to say that it was at this point, this fucking moment, where the shit show really starts. Not with a bang, but with a little boy. No, not that little boy. This little boy. A moment so explosive, so shocking, so unbelievably fucking stupid, it shook college football and changed the futures of both Tennessee and Lane Kiffin for the next decade. What was this moment, you ask? Pete Carroll left USC. I know, end of an era, but why would what is happening in Southern California matter to Lane? Well, if you've been paying any attention, you already see where this might be going, and if not, hey, wake the fuck up and pay attention! Because not even 24 hours after Pete Carroll left, and after barely spending a single year in Knoxville, Lane Kiffin announced he was fucking off to USC. I think we can all imagine that Volunteer fans reacted accordingly. It was mayhem on campus as students poured into the streets to protest Lane Kiffin quitting. The protests were so severe that riot police had to be called in, and Lane couldn't even leave campus until 4 o'clock the next morning. As a little extra shit-flavored icing on this urinal cake, he also took some assistant coaches and frantically called the Tennessee recruits he had been working on for months to now come to USC instead. Add to this the ongoing investigation by the NCAA into the violations Lane had committed, and you can safely say that another bridge has been burned. Lane didn't care though. He was coming back home where his career really began, to build a new dynasty with the Trojans. It was a match made in heaven for both sides. USC gets their old offensive coordinator back from their dynasty in the mid-2000s, and Lane comes full circle, returning home where it all began, as USC's savior. It would be all sunshine and roses, except for the part where USC was currently caught up in the fires of NCAA hell. Hold on to your asses, we're about to dive into the forest of all knowledge again. Except my apologies or not, I couldn't give a fuck either way. So while Lane Kiffin was away making an ass of himself in Oakland, USC got themselves into boiling hot water. The NCAA was tipped off in early 2006 to possible violations occurring at USC. This triggered an investigation that lasted 4 goddamn years across the entire athletic department. What they ended up finding was that USC had allowed a massive player paying scheme to occur under their noses. Various gifts that included cash payments went into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You have to remember back then that this was still turbo illegal, unlike today, where that would be laughable compared to what Miami offered Darian Mensah to come play quarterback for them. Various players across multiple sports were implicated in this shit, but the focus of our story here is going to be USC running back and Heisman Trophy winner Reggie Bush, where it was found that he received cash payments of up to $300,000 from third-party agents, that his parents had apparently been given free housing in San Diego, as well as various travel perks. To be clear, USC did not directly pay Reggie Bush anything, and no evidence has ever emerged that they knew about this at all. Regardless, the NCAA ruled in June 2010 that USC's national title in 2004 All of its victories that Reggie Bush had played in 2004-2005, as well as Reggie's Heisman Trophy, need to be vacated. This included the 2004 National Championship, but not the 2003 title they split with LSU. There would also be a massive scholarship reduction and a 2-year bowl ban slapped on USC until 2012. It was one of the harshest penalties ever given by the NCAA to that point. Now, Lane probably knew what he was signing up for when he went back to USC. I think anyone knew that the Trojans were about to get nuked from orbit after Pete Carroll ran for the hills. However, after all the bullshit he pulled at Tennessee, USC suddenly looked and felt like it was going to be a fresh start at a place that he was already well known for and liked. They will need to weather the storm a few years, but the feeling was that once they get out of this bowl ban, USC would be ready to dominate college football once again, just like the good old days. Would they? Now, honestly, to this point, I've been able to summarize what happened to Lane in nice, neat summaries of varying lengths. But for this next section, I figured we need to go back to how things are normally done in these videos. Year by year, blow by blow, and by ringing the damn bell. As far as a rebuild goes, 8-5 is hardly terrible after 1 year. I mean, your quarterback Matt Barkley broke a school record for touchdowns and they weren't even playing for anything thanks to the bowl ban. USC, even with its swords and shields taken away, could still be a tough team to beat. Sure, this was an empty year with the sanctions and no promises next year, but there's a solid foundation to build upon. The national media is on Lane like white on rice for having a slow first season, but as long as you stay in the good graces of new athletic director Pat Hayden, everything should be fine. By the way, staying in his good graces might be extremely important. Oh, I hear USC tried to appeal the sanctions imposed on them by the NCAA. How did that go? Yeah, that tracks. 10-2? While under a bowl ban with reduced scholarships? Good God, this team is deadly! The AP even ranked them 6th in the nation despite knowing they weren't allowed to compete for the national championship. Guys like Robert Woods, Marquise Lee, Curtis McNeil, and once again Matt Barkley gave the LA faithful a taste of what college football could be. It was the best season for the Trojans since their mid-2000s dynasty. This does two things. It gives the fans hope, but also high expectations. Everyone is expecting a championship now after the progress made this year. Hell, Matt Barkley decided to even come back for his senior season and forego the draft. He was considered a front-runner for the Heisman in 2012. Shades of Matt Leinart after 2004. Add to that Penn State transfer Silas Redd, who was immediately eligible for the 2012 season thanks to the Penn State scandal. The Lane Kiffin Trojans seemed poised to demolish every living soul in sight. Next year, it finally counts. You are the preseason #1 in the country. All the chips are on the table. Let's see what you got.
Tonight, but he came up big in a key situation. 4th down and 40. Barkley needs a miracle. Lets it go down the field for Woods.
We ran into a wall of fucking trees, huh? Okay, to be fair, everybody hits a pothole or two along the way. Some make it through unscathed, while others take a loss in the process. You're far from out of the running at this point this early in the season. Just win out, and you should be fine. God fucking damn it. You got caught looking ahead and played sloppy against Arizona. Kiss your national title hopes goodbye, Trojans. Your conference title hopes are now also on life support with your second conference loss. You better make it up next. Wait a minute. You still gotta play #2 Oregon. If you like defense, you thought this game was a fucking war crime. Peak Pac-12 football was on display as USC scored 51 points on the Ducks. There was just one problem. USC's defense caved in and gave up 62 motherfucking points to the Ducks. Oh, by the way, Monty Kiffin was Lane's defensive coordinator. Yeah, it's safe to say his old school NFL defense was not working. Congratulations, this season is now a lame duck. No national title hopes, no conference title hopes. The only thing you have left to play for is to beat UCLA.
The nose in passing situations. 2nd and 7. He got as well. This time Anthony Barr will record the sack.
And now the season is a complete loss. Matt Barkley got knocked out of the game in the loss against number 17 UCLA. To add insult to injury, you're not even ranked anymore. It can't get worse than this, right?
Wrong.
Oh wait, I forgot to mention that wasn't the season finale. Number 1 Notre fucking Dame cruises to the BCS National Championship game thanks to their win against you. College game day was only on campus for the coronation of God's golden catfish brothers. Not because you fuckers had a chance to win. At least you can go bowling this year. And you got swarmed by the Yellow Jackets. Turns out the raging army of Trojans being held back by the bowl ban were nothing but toddlers hurling bluey dolls. The only fight we saw from USC here was between Matt Barkley and his own teammates. From being the preseason number 1 in the nation to not even being ranked in the end of it. A feat that's not been accomplished by any other team since Ole Miss in 1964. Y'all sat through a 2-year bowl ban just for that? That was your payoff? Lane, get ready to have your seat turned up to the temperature of Death Valley. Fans and boosters are demanding your head on a spear after this utter collapse. You will start 2013 barely ranked in the top 25. If this team does not show improvement and fast, your ass is getting tossed off the Hollywood sign.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
Okay, good. You won the bonus game in week 0 against Hawaii in a convincing style. Convincing as long as you don't pay attention to the quarterback situation. No, of course you didn't play both Cody Kessler and Max Wittick because of struggles and you couldn't figure out what the fuck you were doing during fall camp. Let's see how far you climbed up the rankings. Huh. Okay then. I mean, to be fair, you did take off week 1 after flying back from Hawaii. Shit finally gets real week 2 with the home opener against Wazoo. It's old fucking Crimson, for God's sake. Just handle business.
Goodbye. It's a pick 6.
How in the name of Troy did you allow this to happen? You lost the home opener to fucking Washington State. They went 3-9 last year. No, I don't know who the fuck this Mike Leach guy is, and it doesn't matter. I don't care. It's fucking Washington State.
What's your response to that?
We're getting used to playing on the road.
Oh wait, never mind. Yeah, blew out Boston College. Yep, nothing to see here, folks. Last week was a fluke. It's just some rust after the flight home from Hawaii. With Cody Kessler winning the quarterback job and finding some stability finally, it's full steam ahead for the Trojans. We'll see you guys next when you win the Pac-12. Right?
1 week later.
Cutting it kind of close with Utah State there, eh, Kiffin? I mean, they aren't a bad team. They were ranked in the top 25 last year, and they are decent this year. But if you want to be contenders, you need to be easily beating teams like Utah State. This near-miss crap isn't going to fly once you get into the meat of the schedule. You pretty much need to get through the rest of the season without another loss to save your job. Just beat Arizona State next and get moving.
Later.
This game right here was the end of Kiffin's tenure at USC. He just didn't know it yet. It was decided at some point during halftime that this was it. Lane had to go, and he had to go immediately. Losing 2 conference games to begin the season was simply not going to fly in Los Angeles. After the team plane landed at 3 a.m. Sunday morning at LAX, athletic director Pat Hayton pulled Kiffin into a small conference room just off the tarmac and fired his ass. No warning, no suspense, just his ass hitting the ground. While the rest of the team and Kiffin's bags were thrown on the bus and driven back to campus, Kiffin was driven home by a member of team security. It was the ultimate shame for Kiffin, an end that had many in Oakland and Tennessee rightfully mocking him. The bullshit would continue for USC following Lane's firing, finishing 9-4 and making a bowl game under interim head coach Ed Orgeron. Wouldn't you believe it, they didn't have the balls to hire him full-time. Instead, he would leave USC in a huff when they announced that Steve Sarkisian would take over regardless of the bowl game result. And we all know how that ended. As for Kiffin, this embarrassment nuked his reputation. To this day, he will look back on it as the darkest moment of his coaching career. You can't come back from this bad of a look and expect a program to trust you with the keys to the kingdom. Lane would be forced to begin again at another place entirely. The question is, who would take him under their wing to help Lane. To be honest, it would take an act of God to bring him back at this point into the spotlight in any sort of positive way. God himself couldn't have cared less, of course, about Lane's troubles, but as far as college football goes, there is one man who may as well be considered a living god in some circles: Nick Saban.
Got one guy breaking on the ball. No, Terrell, run the route again. Damn it, it's cut.
Coming off an embarrassing loss to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, as well as getting pantsed in the Sugar Bowl against Oklahoma, Alabama's dynasty found itself flirting with the edge of the abyss. With Doug Nussmeier being lured away to the hellhole known as Michigan, Saban was in need of a new offensive coordinator that could help modernize his attack. Up to this point, Alabama was still very much an old-school pro-style offense, which was quickly getting outran by teams utilizing high-tempo spread offenses. Case in point, Auburn, who beat Alabama and made the national title game in the prior season, and Texas A&M, who had beaten Alabama last year with this style of offense that was led by Heisman Trophy winner Johnny Manziel. Saban is stubborn to change, but he's no fool. He knew a change was needed, and quickly. What began as inviting Lane out to Tuscaloosa for some professional development turned into a full-blown job offer by January. Lane and Saban, however, were not cut from the same cloth. In fact, they were total opposites. Nick Saban, a man legendary for being a stern disciplinarian, now pairing up with the flamboyant and reckless Lane Kiffin. It's safe to say that Lane and Saban were not best friends. But then again, you don't need to like one another in order to work well together. For Saban, it was a career risk. Failure may not cost him his job at this point. I mean, there was no way he was getting fired from Alabama. But associating himself with a pariah like Lane Kiffin could be seen as poor judgment. As for Lane, he had far more to lose. After getting fired just off the tarmac at LAX, getting a lifeline from the god of modern college football can do one of two things: revitalize his career or kill it permanently. Time will tell which way this goes. Well done, Lane. After crunching many hours in the film room with Coach Saban and showing him what the fuck tempo meant, Alabama is once again the premier team in all the land, with a modern offense that is laying waste to opposing defenses. For the first time since Lane was Pete Carroll's offensive coordinator at USC, he was within striking distance of a national championship. The only thing in the way of the Tide is this newfangled 4-team playoff that requires an extra game to win it all. Oh well, it can't be that bad, right? Outside of a single loss to Ole Miss early in the season, no one has been able to stop Alabama. Get ready for another national... Wait, you play Ohio State?
Ezekiel Elliott, and he's got an opening. Elliott off to the races. Can they catch him? No, they can't. Touchdown.
Okay, well, that sucked. And second runner-up was not really good enough for Alabama, but it was still an improvement compared to getting knocked out by Auburn in 2013. Now you're back and even better this year. Quarterback Jake Coker isn't what you would call high caliber, but he has Calvin Ridley, O.J. Howard, and Ardarius Stewart to throw the ball to at will. Not deadly enough? Okay, how about running back Derrick fucking Henry? He not only ran down every living soul in sight, but also won the Heisman Trophy in the process. Just ignore that random-ass loss to Ole Miss early in the season. Wait a minute, again? Whatever, it's not like the Rebels are going to be relevant to the story. You are the SEC champions again and are about to run wild on the college football playoff, baby.
On first down, Coker will take a shot. Ridley holds it in. Coker, end zone, Ridley, jump ball.
He keeps it together.
Henry cuts it, tries to bounce it, gets past Calhoun, headed for the end zone. Another touchdown for the tie. They fake it to Henry. Coker loops it downfield. Howard is wide open, and the tight end will waltz to the end zone. Spelling Henry now, and Coker looks downfield again. Wide open is Howard for his second long touchdown tonight. Henry. No! Stuffed!
by Clemson.
After review, the ruling on the field of touchdown is confirmed.
You did it, Lane. I'll give it to you, man. From the tarmac to the top of the mountain, you have helped lead the Crimson Tide to yet another national championship, and in the process have set yourself apart once again in terms of future head coaches. You did the impossible. You went from undesirable to desirable once again. With everything going your way, the time has come for you to seek out your true destiny. If you can believe it, Alabama is even more powerful than last year. Lane Kiffin's offense is laying waste to every single team in sight once more. Even Ole Miss couldn't stop you this year. Meanwhile, Lane Kiffin has been getting some attention from programs across the country for the first time since he was coaching at USC. As a matter of fact, one team in particular caught his eye. It was Florida Atlantic. What, do you think the Gators really need a new head coach right now? Jim McElwain is doing fine there. Hell, he just led the Gators to the SEC title game, where they were curb stomped by the Tide, of course, but they likely won't need a new coach for a long time. Anyways, FAU is a great landing spot for returning to the head coaching role. It was lower stakes and therefore lower risk. They've only been around for about 15 years in FBS at this point, and have approximately 2 winning seasons to their existence. Add in the bonus of the ocean view from your office, and it's a pretty decent spot to get your groove back. There's just one teensy little problem. You're an offensive coordinator for Alabama. The regular season is over, obviously, but you still have a playoff to get through. Look, Coach Saban understands and knows that the offseason for FAU is already underway, and that balancing that plus finishing out at Alabama can be a lot. He would not be mad if you just head on down to FAU and got started, and if they win any more championship rings, I'll just send them to you in the mail. How about it, Lane? You're sticking around. Well, all right, then. I hope it works out. Congrats, Kiffin. You won the Peach Bowl by beating Washington. 24-7? Kinda weak, I guess. But hey, Alabama's in the national title game, so, this is still great news for you. The thing is that your offense played like a Ford Mustang with a bad transmission. The offense couldn't get out of first gear most of the game. Lots of mistakes and poor play calling slowed down what should have been a total rout. Turns out Lane Kiffin can't really work 2 jobs at the same time. When you're a new coach for a new program while also finishing the postseason at another, conflicts frequently come up. One minute, you're reviewing film for the playoffs, but then you have to call a recruit to convince him to go play for the Owls. Then you're in a staff meeting in Alabama, but need to leave early and get on a plane to go in-person recruiting for FAU. You then have a few more meetings in Boca Raton before you walk in late to another goddamn coaches meeting for Alabama. And you get the gist. He had to be in 2 places at once, which meant he was not fully focused on Alabama, which led to non-stop ass-chewings by Nick Saban. As I'm sure most former players and coaches will tell you, you do not want to be frequently getting chewed out by the legendary Saban. At a certain point, he had enough and told Kiffin to pack his shit and fuck off a week before the national title game. They say it was mutual, and you could probably guess Kiffin was not eager to walk away from Alabama right as he was about to get another ring, but it was the right move for everyone in the end. Kiffin can now fully focus on rebuilding the Owls, while Alabama would go on to win another national title under Nick Saban, and, wait a minute, Steve Sarkisian was there too? And he became the replacement OC? Dude was Lane's shadow for years, I swear to Christ. I wonder how it worked out for them.
Watson. Touchdown!
And there was much rejoicing.
Okay, look, it's not like FAU is a complete nobody. They may be considered lower than dirt to most fans at this time, but their daddy is college football royalty. Oh, who would this father figure be? None other than Howard Schnellenberger. Does that name ring a bell? He was only the architect of Miami's first ever national title in 1983 and kickstarted the U. He also went on to revive the Louisville Cardinals years later, going from 2-9 in 1985 to 10 wins in 1990, which included shoving Alabama's head in the toilet at the goddamn Fiesta Bowl? Wait a minute! How the fuck am I just learning this? Okay, back on track. FAU made Howard not only head coach, but also head of football operations when it began in 2001. Over the next few years, they would work their way through FCS. They even made the FCS playoff semifinals in 2003 before they completed the jump to FBS in 2006 in the Sun Belt Conference. There was a lot of talk coming from Howard early on that the Owls could one day be competing for the top of college football. However, while Howard was a great coach and built 2 programs into household names today, Jesus fucking Christ, the Owls were just never going to get into the national title conversation back then. Even today, that would be fucking impossible, honestly. After 2 bowl wins and a split conference title in 2007, Schnellenberger announced his well-deserved retirement in 2011. The coaches that followed him were,
Live local late-breaking news out of FAU in Boca Raton, where the football coach has just resigned after admitting to illegal drug use.
Smoke weed every day.
And we continue to follow news out of Florida Atlantic University this evening. ESPN 106.3 was first to report this morning that FAU decided to fire head coach Charlie Partridge, who finished 3-9 in each of his 3 seasons with the program.
Not great, to say the least. Compared to what they were dealing with prior, Lane coming in was probably the best thing to happen in Boca Raton since Howard first washed up on their beach. Again, low expectations, so just making a bowl game would be seen as pretty damn good progress. Fuck. Starting out 1-3, eh? Well, I mean, it is year 1, and one of those losses was to number 9 Wisconsin, so just try to figure out what works, and maybe you'll still make a bowl game. Maybe.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
FAU won out and not only won their first ever outright conference title by nuking North Texas, but castrated Akron 50-3 in the Boca Raton Bowl. Jesus, man. That's not even fair. The bowl game was at your own field, for God's sake.
Stop! He's already dead.
You beat the brakes off of Akron so bad they haven't been back to a bowl game since. Let me guess. FAU is going to repeat as conference champs, right?
Oh my God! I gotta do something! Come on, transmit! Transmit! Chaka Khan! Chaka Khan!
Wait a minute, you actually drove the car off the pier and into the fucking ocean after you regressed to 5-7? I mean, you did lose some top-tier talent, so it's not shocking that happened, but this is the real test now. Can Lane Kiffin bring the Owls back to where they were in 2017? You bet your fucking ass he can. Another great season capped off with a dominating Conference USA Championship victory over UAB. Lane leading the Owls to conference championships 2 out of 3 years was more than enough to get the power programs across the country looking his way. Specifically, Ole Miss. Look, I don't need to tell you why Ole Miss was considering Lane Kiffin. It's Ole Miss for fuck's sake. If you know anything about college football, then you know Ole Miss has been mediocre for as long as TV has had color. Their last national championship was 1962, but it wasn't an AP or fucking UPI coach's title, but the Litkin House. The Litkin House was a traveling trophy that Ole Miss still has to this day because it fucking collapsed after they won it. Their last SEC title was in 1963 before they declined for the rest of the decade. Why?
James H. Meredith is formally enrolled at the University of Mississippi, ending one chapter in the federal government's efforts to desegregate the university. The town of Oxford is an armed camp, following riots that accompany the registration of the first Negro in the university's 118-year history.
No reason. Don't worry about it. It's not important. Nowadays, they usually aren't the worst team in the SEC and win somewhere between 5 to 8 games a season, with the occasional 9 or 10 win season once a decade or so. But being forced to play LSU, Alabama, and Auburn in the same division every year made it pretty much impossible for them to ever become contenders for decades. However, at one point in the mid-2010s, it appeared that Ole Miss was finally becoming a true contender. I already mentioned earlier how Ole Miss beat Bama twice in a row in 2014 and 2015. That was all thanks to head coach Hugh Freeze. The son of a bitch installed his own version of a high-tempo offense that was built off the aggressive recruiting efforts Ole Miss made. It had everyone in the SEC reeling, and the success saw the Rebels make their first Sugar Bowl appearance in 45 years. However, all good things must come to an end, and the stink coming from Oxford was undeniable. Ole Miss committed a fuck ton of recruiting violations in order to get the roster that they had. Not to mention, said recruits were also filled with a lot of morons in terms of the classroom. and also outside of it too. So add academic violations to the mix, and now it's looking pretty goddamn dire for old Colonel Reb. The coup de grace, however, wasn't academics and it wasn't recruiting. It was Hugh Freeze being a fucking idiot. Why in the fuck did you ever think it would be a good idea to call an escort service using a school phone? He was told in no uncertain terms that his days were numbered, and he resigned in disgrace. And the hammer came down hard from the NCAA not long after. Scholarship reductions and a 2-year bowl ban for the Rebels. They had been garbage ever since. Last season ended abysmally when Elijah Moore decided to be a fucking idiot himself in the Egg Bowl, a fitting end to a miserable 4-8 campaign. Naturally, head coach Matt Luke was shown the door right after. Lane Kiffin was immediately contacted by Ole Miss, and it was a done deal. As a sign that Lane was a changed man, the departure from FAU was, thankfully, free of controversy. I mean, yeah, the Owls were probably sad to see him go, but they knew they had absolutely no chance to compete with the SEC. Not to mention, Lane was great to them and won 2 conference titles. I mean, what more could you honestly have asked from him? He did his job, and it was time. It also helped smooth things over when they won the bowl game against SMU that year. Lane would arrive in Oxford in December of 2019 and spend the next few months building up the Rebs into a new and improved version of Ole Miss football. It seemed to many that Lane was a changed man. Maybe the experiences of the past couple of years, from being a student with Nick Saban and then striking it out successfully at FAU, finally closed down the snake oil stand and gave us a Lane Kiffin that Rebel fans can be proud to call their own. A coach with integrity. Someone you can trust to send your son to campus and take care of. A guy that finally cared on a deep level about his program and was fully invested in it. Oh, how wrong they were. God damn it. I really need to make a video on 2020 at some point. I've been teasing it for like 2 years now, and this season was a complete wreck in so many goddamn ways. Despite the virus forcing the SEC to play a shortened conference-only schedule, you can see that Lane had still made progress this year. Yeah, they went 4-5 in the shortened 2020 campaign, but thanks to said virus, you were invited to and won the Outback Bowl against Indiana. Yeah, somehow pre-Signetti Indiana made a bowl game in 2020. Yes, it was that broken of a fucking season. Despite the fuckery of it all, it was not a bad start after Ole Miss only paid him $16 million for 4 years. Definitely worth extending in the future if this keeps up. I said in the future! Dear God, why is it that every time I tell a fucking story, the goddamn football team overpays their head coach? Do they all drink stupid juice from the same bowl? Well, I'll be damned. For once, a coach doesn't crumble upon getting a contract extension. Ole Miss went 10-2 and made the Sugar Bowl for the first time since Hugh Freeze ran the show. A phenomenal achievement for the old Rebels. Who are you going to play? Of Baylor? How in the fuck did they get here? Did you get lost looking for the Texas Bowl or some shit? Whatever, you'll kick their ass.
Oh, no!
Wait, you were the ones that got their asses kicked? You came running out of the gate starting the season 7-0 and being ranked as high as 9th in the polls. Nothing can stop you now. Wait, you still have to play LSU and Alabama? What do you mean Auburn is trying to call Lane? Why the fuck would they want him?
Daniels will keep. Daniels to the end zone. Touchdown, LSU.
James Daniels.
Dart to the end zone. Incomplete. Broken up by Brian Branch. Intended for Jonathan Mingo. And there's a smile on the face of Nick Saban right now. Maybe for the first time in a couple of weeks.
Don't blame him.
But whatever Sam has done, it's working.
3 100-yard gains for Landers. Here goes Rocket. Sanders in a dead sprint. And to the end zone. He is in again. A 68.
What the fuck was that?
Ball at the 22. Rodgers to throw. Has a receiver wide open. Thomas.
You completely fell apart and lost 4 of your last 5. Yes, dear viewer, they did lose to Alabama and LSU. But that was only half of it. They also somehow lost to Hog City in the fucking Egg Bowl against Mississippi State as well. Whatever, just go play Texas Tech in the Texas Bowl and regroup. Red Raiders got hands, huh? Funny how all those calls from Auburn stopped coming in around the same time. I wonder who they ended up hiring. The fortunate thing for Ole Miss is that they got back on track. The Rebels went 11-2, with their only losses coming at the hands of the SEC championship contenders in Georgia and, yes, Alabama. Same old shit on the surface, I know, but since those teams are the top of the SEC, it is what it is. As a reward for being the best of the rest, you get to go trophy hunting on a pack of Nittany Lions to win the Peach Bowl. This was a big accomplishment. However, the bigger news is that the college football playoff is expanding next year. To this point, it's always been close, but not close enough for the Rebels. With this expansion to 12 teams, however, your hard work might finally be rewarded with a national championship opportunity. You're 4-0 after knocking the stuffing out of a few teddy bears. The real season begins with the SEC opener against Kentucky. Yeah, I know, it's Kentucky, and they're not exactly a power, so it shouldn't be a problem, right?
Wins it, keeps it, following Sumo Carnbay, and the ball comes out into the end zone, and it's recovered for a touchdown by Josh Caddis. Short, the snapper. They do their job. That kick is no good. A low duck hook.
Good fucking God, guys. What in the hell have you done? You just lost to Kentucky. The conference doormat beat you at home. What a fucking mess. Just get it together the rest of the way and pray the committee forgets this ever happened.
Pump fake, Nussmeier goes back shoulder. Touchdown! Kyron Lacey! And LSU wins!
You lost in a shootout against LSU. Look, this isn't news. LSU usually owns your ass historically, so the rivalry is only one in your goddamn minds. A close shootout loss doesn't eliminate you, but you're on the edge of the abyss after 2 losses. Just win out and hope a few dominoes fall your way. Wait, shit, you still got play number 3, Georgia? Yep, forget it. You may as well just kiss the playoffs goodbye at this point. You ain't winning this one.
Against the safety. They need the 4-yard line. It's 3rd down and 6. Dart. Wells. Touchdown, Juice Wells.
Wait, you won? Oh, you not only won, but you kept Georgia out of the end zone for 55 out of 60 minutes. Now that shit is going to get your ass back in the playoff race. Hell, you might have a chance to make the SEC championship too if some shit goes your way, since you really only have 2 bad teams left in Florida and Mississippi State. It shouldn't be a problem, right? You lost to Sunbelt Billy's Florida Gators? Holy fuck, dude! Sure, the Egg Bowl win is nice, but you really should have won out. As expected, you finish on the outside looking in on the new playoffs. Oh well, you should have won your games, Lane. Let's start prepping for this.
It's just different. It's just totally different. And these comparisons of other conferences and ACC and Big 12, I mean, it's just like, you might as well be in different leagues, not conferences, different leagues. You know, like here's the NFL, here's the SEC, here's those few Big 10 teams, and then here's everybody else.
Lane, will you please shut the fuck up? No one is throwing a pity party for your sorry ass. I don't know why you think bitching on X would make this any different. Sure, the SEC might be a different league, but anyone can tell you that losing 3 games, including a bad loss to a bad Florida team late in the season, would eliminate you from playoff contention. Don't like it? Sorry, bitch, that's what you signed up for in college football. Take this consolation prize in a 52-20 Gator Bowl win over Duke and go touch some grass. You had the playoffs within your grasp and controlled your own destiny despite your own mistakes earlier in the season, and you fucking blew it! Okay, now this is the year. You started off a wee bit shaky, but benched Austin Simmons for D2 star Trinidad Shameless at quarterback, and you have now won 7 in a row. Now comes the ultimate test. Georgia in Athens. A top 10 clash that could determine who plays in the SEC title game. If you want the full breakdown of this classic, go back and watch my Week 8 recap of this game. But to sum it up, it was an absolute dogfight, where the Rebel offense put on a clinic. Through 3 quarters, Georgia had no fucking answers, and could only try to keep up while Ole Miss didn't even punt the ball once. However, the Rebels simply ran out of gas in the fourth quarter, and it went from them winning 35-26 to losing the game 40-35. An absolutely tough way to lose the game. While it puts the SEC title game in doubt, it didn't really hurt them in the long run in terms of the playoffs. I heard Billy Napier got fired by Florida finally. It's about damn time that they send old Sunbelt Billy adrift. Wonder who's replacing him. You take out your frustrations on a battered and bruised Oklahoma team. Yeah, their defense was pretty good, and the Sooners had a fiery third quarter to get within 1 point of tying the game, but alas, the Rebels were too strong on this day, and you sealed the win. Nothing else of note happened on this day. Absolutely nothing. Not a goddamn thing. Not one fucking thing. So, Lane, what's this I'm hearing that you might be looking elsewhere? I know the pundits have been striking out the plate on the coaching carousel this season after trying to make us think that Kurt Cignetti or Matt Rule would jump to Penn State, but you are staying, right? Lane, why are we hearing about family members touring Baton Rouge and Gainesville? Okay, you know what? This is getting uncomfortable now. We cannot be a third wheel here. We are about to win 10 games in a season for the third year in a row. That has never happened at Ole Miss before. We are an SEC power now because of you, and you staying here would be best for everyone.
What are they counting down there? I think it's a "We Want Lane" chant.
The noises are getting louder, Lane. Now we have people in the stands fucking begging you to stay in Oxford. How about we just give you an extension and get this over with? You need to think about it. Okay, we understand you have until the Egg Bowl in 2 weeks to decide. Are you going to stay with Ole Miss and make the playoffs and win a national title? Or are you fucking off to maybe never win a natty with LSU later? Make a decision, Lane. Tick, tick, tick.
So you want to walk in here and call me a hoe? We'll see how it goes.
Oh, scary. Oh, shiver my timbers. Shut up, man.
Congratulations, you handled business against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl and effectively clinched a playoff spot for Mississippi. We will give you an additional 24 hours to celebrate with the team before you tell us your decision. Wait a minute, what the hell is ESPN's Marty Smith doing here setting up a camping tent in the parking lot?
The next day.
Good morning, Lane. We have a nice shiny new extension here ready for you to sign. You still don't know. You want to wait for the games today to play out before making a decision? Why would you making or missing the SEC title game change anything? Sorry, Marty, you're going to be here for a while longer.
Later.
Okay, Lane. Auburn lost to Bama. We're not going to Atlanta. That poor fucker from ESPN has been here a long damn time now waiting to report on an answer. And I think his wife is about to report his ass missing. Just tell us either way what you decided to do so we can go home and work out all the details tomorrow. Why do we need to wait until Sunday morning, Lane?
Many unbearable hours later.
Good news. Lane finally made up his mind. Bad news, he wants to leave. Okay, look, is it the money, dude? Because Ole Miss can definitely match any offer Baton Rouge is throwing at you. You think you're going to have a better chance of winning a national title at LSU instead of Ole Miss? When you actually have Ole Miss in the playoffs right now. Talk about giving up on your own fucking team. The Rebels might not be the favorites to do it, but they're going to have a fucking home game in the first round against a bum-ass Tulane that they ripped apart once already. They have the potential to do it. That's not enough? You know what? Fine. Go ahead. Leave for one of our rivals. Good riddance. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to stay and coach us through the playoffs? Are you joking? Why in the fuck would we let you stick around and recruit our players to potentially transfer to Louisiana after this season? Do you know how stupid we would be to let that happen? No. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get the fuck out of here! Like the Volunteers in 2009, Kiffin's move was met with outrage from the fans. However, this time, Kiffin and his crew didn't give the fans much time to storm the office. Instead, he left as fast as fucking possible on a jet. Fans rightfully called him out from the airport runway with all sorts of obscenities. Hell, I'm more shocked that they held their composure enough to not try and storm the fucking runway. It has to be said that of all of Lane Kiffin's sudden exits, this might be the most damning. After about a month of rampant media and fan speculation, he takes the big bag of money to go be the coach of LSU. Genuinely, I felt like I was watching The Decision with LeBron James all over again. Learning absolutely nothing from the last coaching cycle, LSU threw a gigantic contract at Lane, hoping that this coach will bring them back to championship glory, despite getting ripped apart by the governor of the state for doing this exact same shit previously with Brian fucking Kelly. Despite the fact that he has had the most success working with Ole Miss, despite everything they did to keep him there. That old expression holds true in college football. Money talks, bullshit walks. And Lane Kiffin left to the tune of a 7-year, $91 million contract that not only guarantees him a buyout of 80% of the remaining salary when he gets fired, but also LSU pays him additional playoff bonuses for every single game Ole Miss won in the playoff. Yeah, LSU paid Lane more money for Ole Miss winning playoff games. In the end, LSU would pay out 3 playoff bonuses to Lane Kiffin as he watched Ole Miss make a legendary playoff run under new head coach Pete Golding, winning the first and second round games before falling to Miami in the semifinals. While Ole Miss became America's favorite SEC team, mainly because we all felt bad for what happened to them thanks to this snake, Lane was, of course, making an ass of himself on ESPN at the Texas Bowl while LSU got humiliated by Houston. Not like he stuck around and watched it or anything. If that wasn't bad enough, there's now accusations of tampering between him and Ole Miss through the NIL portal, showing Ole Miss was very wise in kicking his ass to the curb as soon as they did. To pack up and leave a rising power in the SEC of all conferences, a program going to the playoffs, a program that could have easily won national titles with Lane at the helm in the hopes of winning a national title for LSU instead, just because they've been able to do it before and have the advantage of being in the college football recruiting gold mine known as Louisiana, it all just screams to me one thing. He doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care about his team, his players, or who he pisses off to get what he wants. On the one hand, this ruthlessness is something I could respect. Hell, some of the greatest coaches of all time were also some of the most brutal sons of bitches to walk on the gridiron. The problem with Lane, however, is he's gone through all this shit, pissed off all these programs, and burned all the bridges to become a great head coach. And at this point, only has 2 Conference USA titles as a head coach to show for it. Sure, you can flash those national title rings you won as an assistant coach all day long, but as a head coach, you've done less than what James Franklin did at Penn State. And for as much shit as I give him, he tried everything he could to make it work at Penn State, goddammit. He was loyal to the people who gave him a chance to succeed. In my opinion, Lane, you are a snake that will bite the hands of those who feed you. From Oakland to Tennessee to USC, Alabama, and now Ole Miss. Nearly everyone that crosses paths with the snake Lane Kiffin will get bit in the end. Now it's LSU's turn to pay $91 million for the honor of trading whatever soul they had left to the succubus that is Lane fucking Kiffin. Will it get them what they want in the end? Maybe. Even if it does mean he finally wins a national title as a head coach, the odds are he's only going to burn down another bridge in the process. For Lane Kiffin, loyalty means nothing. Winning, even if it comes at the expense of everything around you, means everything. LSU sold their soul to a man who has none.